It's time for the Newsmaker Show on News Talk AM 1480 WLEA. Here's Kevin Doran.
It's Brian O'Neill in for Kevin Doran today, in with our regular Friday guest, Dr. Robert Heineman. Welcome to town.
Thank you, Brian. Good to be here. I hope you're ready to go at it a little bit here today, Brian.
All righty, with Dr. Robert Heineman, the Alfred University professor, long time, of political science. Dr. Heineman, can we cover the Pope first?
Well, I don't know much about popes, but sure. What do you have to say there?
Pope Francis spoke in Washington this week at both the White House and to a joint session of Congress. Summed up, his statements could be praised by and criticized by both liberals and conservatives. He was anti-death penalty. Liberals would like that. Conservatives would not. He was pro-environmentalist. Liberals would like that. The conservatives would not. He was anti-gay marriage. Conservatives would give him a thumbs up for that. The liberals would not. He was not really pro-capitalist. The liberals probably would like that. The conservatives would not. Pro-immigration, meaning illegals, and conservatives don't like that, but liberals do. What to make of this?
Well, I'm not so certain on the immigration thing. I think there are quite a number of conservatives pretty generous on the immigration issue. So that's one that covers people from both parties. You didn't mention abortion. Did he say anything about abortion?
As far as I know, he really has not been hammering on abortion.
I see. Okay, well, that would be another issue. I think there are a couple of points there. And again, I didn't follow this very closely at all. He seems like a very decent fellow. But I think when he starts getting into environmental issues and global warming and all that sort of thing, I think he's getting a bit out of what we might consider the realm of the church, whatever church it happens to be. And the thing you have to be concerned about with this whole global warming thing is there's evidence that there's global warming. Obviously, melting at the North Pole has opened up channels that have been closed for centuries. But the question is, who's responsible for it, or is it just simply a global natural kind of phenomenon? And the point is, there's a heck of a lot of money at stake here, and a lot of researchers and such that very much would like to be able to claim that we have to do something to stop emissions into the atmosphere and, take other kinds of measures. So once you get the government in this all the way, there's a lot of money to be broken loose there to a lot of universities and colleges and research centers. So it's not that it's what I would say a neutral kind of issue. Plus, from the liberal side, you have a lot of liberals coming from other ideologies of one sort or another that think really that's their place to kind of control the rest of us who are doing devious and self-destructive kinds of things, drinking large bottles of sugared soda, for example, or It's so in terms of trying to control the rest of us, there's always somebody out there willing to do that. So I think there are a lot of factors in there that have nothing to do with doing something about global warming, which, again, that's where I'm not quite certain there's so much you can do there.
The Pope, when he was in Washington, he touched on civil rights without really getting into the Black Lives Matter movement. It was noted, looking online, that he did not mention abortion in his Thursday or Wednesday speeches, and he has said before that that's been covered enough.
Yeah, well, I think he's fairly generous on that, but I don't think he's moving off the basic position of the Catholic Church, and I certainly have no problem with that.
Moving on to Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah,
Fox had a poll out this week. The polls still show that he's in first place. Trump is boycotting Fox, and he announced that online on Wednesday. He said that he's boycotting them because they're unfair to him. Fox released a statement saying that Bill O'Reilly dropped him from a scheduled interview that Trump was going to go on the O'Reilly Factor on Wednesday night. Your thoughts on Trump?
Well, my understanding that Roger Ailes is meeting with him somewhere along the line here.
That's right.
And I'm not certain, how much Ailes cares one way or another. I think, as you mentioned on the last program we had, or maybe it was Kevin, that Zogby took the position that he was going to drift off after the last debate. And I think that's what's happening. He's going to move farther and farther to the edge there. And although he may not drop precipitously, I can see him getting down into the low 20s, high teens, which will be a problem for him. And I think knowing who he is, he's going to get nastier and nastier. I think Governor Walker did the right thing by withdrawing from the race at this point. And I thought it was a very classy statement by Walker. He made it very plain that he had no use for somebody like Trump winning the nomination. And as you know, he asked a number of the other candidates, he said, it's time maybe some of the rest of you pulled out. We have to narrow this field so people can focus on the candidates who have a shot and focus on getting rid of Trump. So I think in politics, as in gambling, you got to know when to hold and when to fold. And Walker knew when to fold. Some of these other guys, I don't know what they think they're doing in there. And I think Walker's withdrawal speech really makes some of them look way overweeningly ambitious. And so people like Pataki and Lindsey Graham and their Santorum, there are a number of others there that probably should fold things up and let the last 5 or 6 have a full shot at it. I don't know whether they will or not. Obviously, the key is in terms of how much money you have. And again, what kind of image you're projecting. Once the voting begins and you end up with 0.5% or 1% of the vote, that's not going to look good. I don't care if you're Pataki or whoever you are. Now, the other thing about the polls is, of course, again, it's too early for them to be all that meaningful, but it does affect your ability to raise money. And of course, it doesn't bother Trump at all because he's throwing his own money in there left and right. But some of these other people, if they're polling only 2% or 3%, you're not going to get too many people willing to put money in their campaign, and that makes it very tough then to really take off. Whereas someone like Fiorina, I would guess she's beginning to bring in some pretty hefty money, and that's because she's pumping up there in the polls. So I think Trump, again, is moving more and more to the margins. Again, I'm disappointed in Carson. I think this whole discussion about whether Muslims can be president, I mean, this is really off the wall.
Should he have dodged that question?
Yeah. And the other problem is Huckabee. Huckabee has now decided that he's going to make Obama out to be a non-Christian. And, I mean, he's really getting very nasty about this. And I think that's really quite unfortunate, too. But I do think that maybe the one thing they are doing is probably drawing some of the nutcases away from the Trump supporters and spreading them out a little bit there.
Quinnipiac poll came out yesterday, Thursday. Just like the Fox poll, Trump comes out well ahead, followed by Ben Carson, 17%. He's up 5 points, they say. Ben Carson is followed by Carly Fiorina, who's 12%, up 7 points. Jeb Bush up the 10%.
Yeah, well,
3 points. What do you think of all that?
Not much. Not much. I think, again, you see Trump kind of stalemating there at the mid-20s. And I think, again, Fiorina will continue to go up. And I think you're going to see Fox News, for example, spend more time and give Fiorina more time. She doesn't come across that well, frankly, on television. But she does come across, she is smart, and she is articulate. And so I think that'll probably do her some good. I think the person who's in there for the long term is Jeb Bush.
Jeb Bush, I'm glad you brought him up. Jeb Bush is being criticized by many on the left for saying, quote, we should not have a multicultural society. What do you make of that?
Well, I agree with him. I think the whole idea of America as a melting pot in pluribus unum, in diversity union, is what we're all about. And having done a lot of work on immigration over the years, the difference here today from, say, the 1920s and 1930s, 1940s, 50s, is that when people come over here, they never really have to leave their family or their home. With the Twittering and the Facebook and all these other social media tools, they can contact their mother or their brothers and sisters 3 or 4 times a day. And so in terms of actually melding into the American society, it's harder to do. And what is happening, all these proponents of diversity and all that sort of thing, you're getting these advocacy groups building up in this country, and the leaders of these advocacy groups, of course, it's to their benefit to be as outrageous and aggressive as they can. So they don't have any interest in a united America and a melding pot approach to American society. And frankly, the point is immigration and this diversity that we've had is what makes the United States the great nation it is. But once you start using it to divide us up and fragment us, I think that's very hurtful. I go with Bush on that. Now, you might want to phrase it a little differently, I suppose, but generally I think he's on the right track.
What do you see happening in the GOP race? We know you
would
like to see Trump out. Do you think it'll happen, and who would step up in his place?
Well, no, I think what's going to happen here, what did I just say? I just said I didn't know. Well, I think what is likely to happen is Trump is going to become more and more outrageous, and I could get really very, very nasty, and that's most unfortunate. So, I don't know. He could take his ball and go home with it, and nobody would care. But maybe he can find an issue that will once again get the crazies all together. I see now he's going after Hillary for being a birther, and of course, in 2008, Trump was one of the big birthers criticizing Obama, suggesting that he wasn't born an American citizen, which is totally garbage. And but there are some indications that Hillary, she certainly didn't come out and strongly criticize that view. That's for sure. She kind of left it up to the voters. So I guess maybe that's what Trump was saying. So why we'd bring this up now, it's beyond me. Here you are talking about issues like that, and you have the Russians increasingly moving militarily into Syria, and you have a lot of other very serious issues. You have the president of China visiting with, 15 of our top computer people, social media people in Seattle, and he's brought his people over. So I don't know what those people are doing out there. Obviously, I assume the White House knows. But you've got some really important issues out there I think we should be dealing with as opposed to. And I will say this, Carly Fiorina, she does deal with them. She will, in fact, give you a clear statement of where she stands on that.
On the topic of Carly Fiorina, just reading online that Quinnipiac University poll that came out on Thursday morning, it shows that in a head-to-head race between Hillary Clinton and Carly Fiorina, that Carly Fiorina comes up on top in the Quinnipiac poll.
Yeah, well, I don't think Hillary wants to debate Carly, and for good reason, because Fiorina is clearly smarter than Hillary Clinton is. And I think you probably follow this. I don't know about Kevin, whether Kevin has followed his friend Ed Klein. Ed Klein, as you may know by now, is coming out with another book on Hillary Clinton per se. And he is saying something we've suggested on this program before, is that she suffered from a number of strokes and that her health is in really very bad shape, that she's had blinding headaches, she has blackout periods and such. So the whole health issue is going to be raised here, and I don't know. I mean, it puts once again Hillary on the defensive, and I think there's a lot of pressure there on her. She's older, and I would guess quite a bit older than Fiorina. I'm not sure, but she's the meetings among her campaign people, trying to lay out the strategy or tactics of the campaign. Those have got to be really intense, nasty get-togethers. I don't think I'd even want to sit anywhere near those folks meeting. They've got to be struggling and grasping for whatever they can to try to get Hillary back on track.
Are you, on the topic of Hillary, are you surprised that it's Hillary number one, Bernie Sanders number two, with Sanders being 15 points ahead of Joe Biden? Does that surprise you?
Well, no, there's another poll out that shows Biden ahead of Sanders. So there are polls here, polls there.
Right.
And all the polls show Hillary up 8, 10 points, maybe more. But the point is, she's dropped below 50% in a lot of these polls, and the number of people who distrust her and have an unfavorable view of her has continued to go up. So it's not a good situation for her, and I think Biden's numbers, frankly, are pretty promising for somebody who hasn't even declared yet. So we'll just have to let this work its way out. I don't know whether they're going to have any debates or not. And obviously this Schultz woman, who is a chairman of the Democrat National Committee, is doing everything she can to protect Hillary. It's pretty clear that Hillary is her candidate. So we'll just have to see how so the Democrats are not without their divisions and unhappiness as well.
Ed Klein apparently is speculating that, apparently from what I'm reading online, that Deval Patrick, or someone is saying, excuse me for sounding so stumbling, I'm just reading it as we speak, that Obama might endorse Biden.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I guess that's Klein saying that.
Yeah, I have no idea.
What would happen with the Clintons and the Obamas if that happened?
Well, I don't think it's any worse than it is already.
According to Klein, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, he's written several books on this already. And although the Clinton people come out with, saying that this guy is factually incorrect, he's reporting rumors and gossip, I got to say, I don't think Klein does anything unless he's got 2 or 3 people who have pretty much told him, confirmed the information he's laid out there. So far as I can tell, the guy is fairly credible. And I don't think he's run off in kind of a wild harangue of some sort. So we'll just have to see. I think the key with Obama is, I guess he doesn't have to endorse one way or another, but the black vote, that African American base, is pretty important in the Democratic Party today, and obviously Obama can do a lot to move that one way or another. So
we're going to raise our hands here and ask the professor if we can take a break for 60 seconds.
Yes, it's in the syllabus, yes.
Okay, do I need a hall pass for that?
This isn't high school. We teach in college here.
Okay, we'll be back in 60 seconds. Newsmaker Show. Brian O'Neill filling in for Kevin Doran on with Dr. Robert Heineman. Dr. Heineman, you said in the last segment that polls are polls, and one poll says this and one poll says that. Now, after you said that, I noticed online that Fox has Joe Biden doing much better than Quinnipiac does. What do you make of all that? It's who they ask and where they ask?
I'm sorry?
Is it who they ask and where they ask?
It's how they put the polls together, for one thing. Number one, are they asking people who are simply registered Republicans, registered Democrats? Are they simply asking people across the board who are registered voters generally? Are they asking people who are going to turn out pretty much guaranteed? And then are they considering the turnout issue? So that, for example, Obama, in terms of his wins, was able to turn out a very large Hispanic African-American vote. And the African-Americans are not well known for a large turnout. But obviously Obama appealed to them, had them organized, and got them out there. And so even though Romney, for example, did quite a bit better in a lot of the categories, his turnout was not high enough to offset the so turnout's a very important part, and your polls have to somehow try to measure that. And right now, I think what you have is a lot of pollsters trying to get as much publicity as they can. And I'm not saying that they're, trying to pull the wool over our eyes. Some of them are, but they're trying to get as much media attention as they can. And so some of these polls, I think, are pretty loose in terms of the what we call the credibility of their structure. Now, when you start getting closer to the elections and the primaries and things, then you got a pretty good idea how things are going to go. But again, when you have a lot of candidates running, once you get above two candidates, the polls do the best they can, but it's pretty tough to. The chances of a surprise candidate coming along are much higher. So it's way early yet. This is just sort of, and a point somebody made on a panel the other day I was on was that people aren't paying any attention to this at all, really. And you would think, of course, if you're inside the the Clinton campaign or inside the Trump campaign, that's all you're thinking about day in, day out. And most of the people on the street much more concerned about whether the Bills are going to win or how the National League playoffs are going to work out. I mean, those. So you mentioned who you're going to vote for, or mention some names. Obviously, Trump. Everybody knows who Trump is. His name recognition is way up there. Everybody knows who Hillary is, and her name recognition is way up there. Whether they're once they think on it and look at the other candidates, what they'll do, who knows? So, that's one of the problems with the early polls.
Dr. Heineman, final question.
Yes.
You're well connected with the Republicans in New York State. They're and you have connections in Washington too.
Well, here and there.
And you have connections with the Republicans in New York State who have Republican connections in Washington. So you're well connected. Point being, who is the GOP more afraid of as far as the White House candidate for 2016 goes? Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, or Joe Biden? Who are they most afraid of?
Well, I would say at this point, it's between Clinton and Biden. I don't think any Republican in New York State is terribly worried about Bernie Sanders, although I don't think anybody dislikes Bernie. I mean, I like Bernie. I think he's an honest man. I think he's laying it out there the way he should. But between Biden and Clinton, I think the real question from the Republican point of view is how do the Democrats fall into the line here? Are they more likely to fall in the line behind the Clintons, or are they more likely to fall into line behind Biden? And I don't know, there's some indication that Biden might be the guy that would be more attractive to the Democrats. Well, that makes him a more serious candidate from the Republicans' point of view then, too. And I think he would be a serious candidate in New York State.
Dr. Robert Heineman, Alfred University professor of political science. I always want to make you a professor of history. That's
Please
Gary.
Don't do that.
Yeah, that's
Brian.
Gary Ostrar. We're out of
Well,
time.
I don't know who it is, but I don't. Yes, please.
We're out of time. Got to fly. See you. Bye. Thanks for stopping by.
Always a pleasure, Brian.
Thank you, Dr. Heineman.